Tonight we rest in the oldest story of steadfast trust, a story of holding on to hope when the world seems to fall apart. Have you ever felt your faith shaken by a sudden storm? A deep disorientation that leaves you questioning everything you thought you knew about peace. The story of Job offers a blueprint, not for avoiding the pain, but for finding profound, settled worship right in the middle of it. We often think of worship as something we do only when life is easy, but Job's journey shows us a quiet, different way. It reveals how to hold onto the gentle thread of hope, showing us a path through the deepest darkness that leads to an ultimate rest in the mercy of the Creator. Let us walk through his story now. Imagine a world filled with the quiet wealth of a simple, moral life. This is where the story begins. A man lived in a land of tranquil abundance, a man whose very existence was a reflection of deep, gentle devotion. This man was Job. He was introduced to the world as blameless and upright. The text describes him softly as someone who feared the Creator and shunned all shadows of evil. This was not a casual goodness, it was a profound statement about his inner character, a soul marked by deep piety and moral integrity. His external life simply reflected this inner devotion. He possessed immense, quiet wealth, great sprawling flocks of sheep and camels that grazed peacefully on vast lands. He had a large, respected family, a circle of life that signified the deep, quiet blessing of the Creator. He had everything that would signify God's peaceful favor. His days unfolded with the serene predictability of a soft, slow river. No sudden turns, no jarring rapids, only the steady, comforting flow of prosperity and goodness. His heart was anchored by routine. He would rise early, his thoughts already turned toward the divine. He will offer gentle sacrifices for his children, a quiet, constant act of preemptive care, fearing that even in their joy, they might have inadvertently slipped from the path of peace. This was the quiet vigilance of a deeply devoted soul. This quiet, perfect setup creates a deep, soft tension. A question begins to whisper in the air. If Job was so purely righteous, why would the divine permit him to suffer? The narrative shifts now to a calm, high place beyond our seeing, a divine counsel where the Creator himself points out Job, highlighting Job's deep, unshaken integrity, saying there is no one on earth quite like him. His exemplary faith itself became the very reason for the coming trial. The accuser, Satan, then presents a challenging, soft question. He asks if Job fears the Creator for nothing. He suggests that Job's quiet devotion is conditional, directly tied only to the prosperity and the deep, constant protection that has been given to him. This accusation proposes that true devotion is only revealed when the gentle blessings are stripped away, when the comfort is gone and the soul is left bare. The Creator's response is crucial and deeply comforting. He permits the accuser to test Job, but with one vital, final constraint. Job's life must be spared. This limitation is not a small detail. It introduces a purposeful dimension to the coming affliction. The trial is not intended for Job's destruction, but for a quiet, profound examination of his spiritual fortitude, proving that his trust is robust enough to withstand the most severe adversity. The purpose is to demonstrate the sheer, gentle resilience of a faith that is rooted in something deeper than just favorable, comfortable circumstances. This setup forces us to quietly reconsider the relationship between blessing and faith. Many hearts operate on the idea that a good life guarantees protection from all shadows. Job's story directly challenges that notion, gently suggesting that righteousness does not automatically grant immunity from all hardship. Instead, his story opens the door to a more complex, more gentle understanding of divine sovereignty. The Creator's purposes can include using pain as a crucible, a soft fire to refine and reveal the true nature of faith, always transcending our human understanding. This challenges us to move beyond a simple transactional view of our relationship. We are invited to trust in the Creator's character, even when his gentle ways are hidden in a shroud of mystery. Let this quiet character of Job settle over your heart now, the integrity that stands as a foundation, the blameless life that amplifies the significance of his coming suffering. His unwavering faith is about to be put to the most ultimate, most quiet test. Rest now in the deep integrity of a faithful soul. We move from the scene of quiet faith to the moment that silence is broken. How do you process loss when it arrives not as a single blow, but as a relentless, rapid-fire sequence of catastrophes? The account of Job's sudden losses is stark and sequential. It strips him of his property, his faithful servants, and his children, all in the space of a single day. This dismantling of his life is delivered with an agonizing slowness to amplify the feeling of being utterly overwhelmed and targeted by misfortune. The messengers arrive one after another. Each report is more devastating than the last. This narrative structure exposes the raw, quiet vulnerability of human existence. The text doesn't soften the blow. It emphasizes the totality, the crushing suddenness of the devastation. We see a man moved in an instant, from the pinnacle of security to the depths of profound, internal grief. This scene validates the experience of anyone who has felt their world collapse in an instant, when the foundation beneath your feet seems to crumble into dust. The first messenger arrives with the heavy news of an attack. Raiders have stolen the oxen and donkeys, the symbols of quiet, steady labor. They killed the servants who were plowing the fields, a deep, immediate loss of livelihood and of human connection. Job has no time to absorb this, no moment to anchor his thoughts. Before he can turn his attention from this loss, a second messenger runs in, his voice breathy and low. He brings the unimaginable. Fire from heaven has consumed the sheep and the shepherds, his vast pastoral wealth, the gentle, quiet flocks that sustained his family, is gone, vanished. His loss is compounding now, one layer of security removed, and then the next. There is no pause for breath. Breathe in the quiet, breathe out the worry. A third messenger interrupts, his voice heavier with despair. Another band of raiders has taken the camels that represented long-distance trade, immense value. Their loss is a massive economic blow. They killed the servants tending them. Each messenger brings a report that builds on the last, a slow, deliberate crescendo of disaster that leaves no room for emotional recovery. The narrative meticulously details each arrival, creating a sense of relentless, focused assault. And then, the fourth messenger comes, his voice now just a sorrowful, desperate whisper. This is the most devastating report of all. His sons and daughters were eating and drinking together in their oldest brother's house. A great wind, an unforeseen force, struck the house. It collapsed on them. All 10 of his children, his entire generation of hope, are dead. An entire future, gone in a single, quiet moment. The loss of his 10 children represents an unimaginable depth of grief. It intensifies the feeling of being truly targeted. This event pushes Job from familial security to a profound, deep sorrow. The sheer scale of this loss, his heirs and his future, is overwhelming. Let the heaviness settle and pass. Do not hold on to it. The rapid succession of these reports is a deliberate, slow, literary device. It is designed to create a sense of relentless dismantling. This mirrors how sudden, compounding losses can dismantle a person's quiet sense of security. The narrative creates a crescendo of loss that leaves no room for mental recovery. Job's initial losses were not just personal, they were a deep economic and social blow. The oxen, sheep, and camels, they signify vast enterprises, the foundation of his quiet livelihood and his place in society. Their swift destruction underscores the totality of his downfall. He moves from prosperity to utter destitution in one single day. This methodical dismantling exposes how fragile our foundations can feel. It shows the raw weight of sudden, overwhelming loss. This forms the central, quiet problem of Job's story. It is in this context of total ruin, This absolute bareness that his most famous response takes place. The crushing weight sets the stage for a raw, deeply honest faith. Imagine the quiet devastation, the silence that fell after the final messenger finished speaking. A silence so absolute it seemed to swallow the light. Job hears the words, but his mind moves slowly, processing the sheer impossibility of the devastation. His world has been stripped bare. The physical structure of his life is gone. The foundations of his joy are shattered. But even in this ruin, something unbreakable remains, the thread of his character, the quiet, constant anchor of his faith. Let yourself feel the weight of this stillness now, the total cessation of noise and hurry. All that remains is the deep, dark certainty of the moment. Breathe in the stillness, breathe out the confusion. The story shows us that even when all is lost, the soul has a resource that cannot be taken away, a quiet capacity for surrender. The crushing weight of loss is simply the precursor to a raw, profound declaration of trust. Rest now, in the deep quiet that holds the promise of peace, even after all the messengers have come and gone. The worst is over, and the true faith is about to begin. We settle back into the silence, the heavy crushing silence that follows the final messenger. Job has heard the news. He is ruined, utterly bare. Now the question is not about the loss itself, but about the first, most honest movement of a heart shattered by grief. Job's initial response is not a polished prayer. It is a visceral act of mourning, a raw, physical surrender to devastation. He rises slowly, he tears his robe, and he shaves his head. These were culturally recognized signs of deep, authentic grief, a public acknowledgement of profound internal rupture. This action demonstrates that true faith does not require the suppression of raw, human emotion. Worship begins not by denying the pain, but by acknowledging it fully before the Creator. The tearing of the robe is a powerful, slow symbol. It represents the quiet tearing of his life, an outward sign of an inward rupture. This step is crucial because it shows that worship can emerge from the raw material of grief. The Creator is not offended by our honest expressions of sorrow and confusion. This is where Job's surrender starts, with the honest physical evidence of his broken heart. The journey from grief to surrender passes directly through the valley of lament. Shaving his head was another significant gesture, a public sign that marked him as someone in deep, profound grief. It showed that his loss was real, total. He was not hiding his anguish from his community or from the divine. He was living it out honestly. This integration of raw feelings into worship demonstrates a mature spiritual life, a relationship with the Creator that is strong enough to handle absolute honesty. Many hearts feel pressure to have the right words when they pray, to sound faithful and put together. Job's example frees us from that pressure. His worship started with a torn robe and a shaved head. It started with the physical evidence of a broken heart. Worship is not about performing for God. It is about presenting our true, authentic selves to Him. When we are grieving, our true self is often a mess. Job shows us that a messy, grieving heart can still worship. In fact, that kind of worship might be the most authentic kind. It comes from a place of deep need and raw dependence. The journey through lament is not a detour from faith. It is a path that leads to a deeper surrender. By fully feeling his grief, Job was able to then make his profound statement of trust. He did not bypass the pain to get to the praise. He moved through the pain, and the praise came from the other side. Pause for a deep breath. Now, what does it mean to bless the Creator when you feel utterly cursed by your circumstances? After expressing his raw grief, Job does something that defies all human logic. He falls to the ground, a posture of complete submission. In that silent moment, he speaks words that have echoed through centuries. He says, "The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." This statement is not a denial of his immense loss. It is a radical reframing of the entire catastrophe, within the context of the Creator's ultimate sovereignty. He acknowledges that everything he had was a gift from the Creator in the first place. This perspective shifts the focus from what was lost to the one who gave it. Worship, in this defining moment, becomes the deliberate act of trusting the Creator's character, despite all the devastating evidence to the contrary. Job chooses to bless the name of the Lord. He affirms the Creator's inherent goodness, completely separate from his own devastating experience. This is the secret to worshipping when everything is gone. It is a conscious decision to anchor your soul in who the Creator is, not in what you have. This act effectively severs the link we often create between circumstantial blessing and God's worthiness to be praised. It establishes a foundational truth. God is worthy of worship simply for who he is, not for the gifts he gives. This is the pivotal turn where grief begins its transformation into surrender. The ache of loss remains profound, but something new enters the picture. Job's worship creates a space where his grief and his faith can coexist. He does not pretend the loss did not happen. Instead, he places that loss squarely within the realm of God's authority. He acknowledges that God, who gave him so much, also allowed it to be taken. And in the face of that mysterious reality, he still chooses to bless God's name. Think of it like adjusting the focus on a camera. Job's initial grief had his loss in sharp focus. The pain was clear and overwhelming. His act of worship is like turning the focus ring. He brings God's unchanging character into the foreground. The loss is still there in the frame, but it is no longer the primary subject. The main subject becomes the eternal nature of God. This reframing does not erase the pain, but it places it in a larger, more stable context. This is the blueprint for worship in crisis. It is a choice to say, Creator, I do not understand this. My heart is broken, but you are still God, and you are still good, so I will bless your name. This act of worship becomes the lifeline that carries him through the long days of suffering that follow. It is the first step on the path from devastation to a deeper, more resilient trust. We leave Job anchored in surrender, a quiet man with a broken heart. The trial now moves to a profound test of his physical endurance, a test that isolates him further. The affliction deepens, moving from his external world of property and family to the inner sanctity of his body. Job is struck with terrible sores, a severe physical suffering that covers him from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. He sits among the ashes, the place of deepest destitution, scraping his skin with a broken piece of pottery, a sound like a low, constant whisper of agony. Settle your mind now, feel your breathing grow slow and steady. Imagine the absolute stillness of that scene, the low rasp of the shard against his skin, the quiet, constant agony that leaves no room for anything but survival. This relentless pain tests the very resilience of his physical being. His wife, in her own deep confusion and grief, speaks a low, desperate challenge. She urges him to curse the Creator and simply die, to find release from the relentless agony. But Job maintains his quiet dignity. He gently reminds her that they have received immense good from the divine hand, and should they not also accept the darkness? His faith remains rooted, a quiet, unshakable strength that anchors him to the earth even as his body fails. He is clinging to the one truth that remains, the ultimate sovereignty of the Creator. Breathe in the quiet, feel the comfort of simple presence. The 7 days of silence from his friends have broken. Their initial comfort has shifted to spoken accusation. They apply a rigid, simplistic theology to his complex pain. They insist that suffering must always be a direct punishment for sin. This approach agitates Job's pain immensely. Their version of comfort implies he is to blame for his own misery. It suggests that if he had been more righteous, his life would still be intact. This line of reasoning isolates Job further. Eliphaz, the first friend to speak, claims a vision, a revelation. He suggests that Job's suffering is a form of discipline, implying that no one is truly innocent. His words are clothed in philosophy, but they lack simple compassion. He argues gently that Job should simply submit to the discipline, to trust that this pain is meant to teach him. Bildad, the second friend, is more direct, more blunt. He argues that the Creator would not punish a blameless man, therefore he harshly implies that Job's children must have sinned to deserve their fate. He urges Job to seek God and repent, suggesting the solution is an immediate confession to solve the crisis. Zophar, the third friend, is the harshest, the least understanding. He claims that Job's suffering is actually less than he deserves. He insists that true wisdom lies in acknowledging that God must have uncovered some secret sin. The arguments cycle. They grow frustrated with Job's refusal to accept their diagnosis. Their long, dense speeches create a wall of words around his pain. Instead of easing his burden, their words add a layer of spiritual confusion and guilt. Let the harshness of the words fade now. Focus only on the quiet dignity of Job. Job does not meekly accept his fate. He passionately protests his innocence and questions the justice of the divine. His laments are raw, honest, and full of anguish, yet they are directed toward the Creator, not away from him. This demonstrates that faith can include doubt, questioning, and even accusation. As long as the conversation continues, he refuses to satisfy his friend's faulty theology with a lie. He insists on his innocence, not out of pride, but out of a deep commitment to truth. His struggle shows that a relationship with the divine is strong enough to handle our hardest questions. This is a model for bringing our whole selves, including our anger, into prayer. His protests are not a sign of weak faith, but of a deep, engaged relationship. Breathe in the quiet. Breathe out the confusion. After his friends have spoken, and his own protests have filled the air, we reach a moment of quiet resolve. The arguments are over. The pain remains. And in that space, Job makes a declaration that anchors his soul. He says, "Though he slay me, I will hope in him." This is not a statement made from a place of comfort. It comes from the depths of his suffering. Job acknowledges the real possibility that God's actions might lead to his death. He confronts the worst-case scenario and makes a conscious choice. His hope is not conditional on a positive outcome. This hope is active. It is a decision to wait for the Creator even when the Creator feels completely absent. It is a commitment to trust God's character, regardless of the evidence he sees around him. Job separates his trust in God from the circumstances he is experiencing. His faith is no longer tied to blessings or protection. It is grounded in who God is, not in what he has. Think of it like a ship's anchor. A storm can rage on the surface of the ocean. The waves can be high, and the wind can be fierce, but the anchor holds fast to the seabed, far below the turmoil. Job's hope is that anchor. His circumstances are the storm. The hope is not in the calm weather returning. The hope is in the anchor's grip. This is the core of persevering faith. It is a trust that transcends human understanding. It does not need all the answers. It does not require a happy ending to be true. It is a raw, stubborn hope that clings to God when there is nothing else left to hold on to. Job shows us that our faith can survive the loss of everything, as long as we do not lose our grip on God. Take a moment. Feel the anchor hold. Let your body grow heavy and still. Job's faith takes another step. He looks beyond his present suffering and makes a profound statement of trust. He says, "I know that my Redeemer lives." This is not a vague hope. It is a confident declaration about a specific person. Job applies the idea of a Redeemer, a close relative who buys back your freedom, to the divine. He sees God as his personal defender, the one who will ultimately take up his case and set things right. This hope shifts his focus completely. He is no longer looking just at his current pain. He is looking beyond the grave. Job believes that even if he dies in this state of suffering, his Redeemer will still act. Death cannot stop this vindication. This hope transcends time and circumstance. His pain is real, but it is not the final word. The final word belongs to his living Redeemer. His confidence is no longer in his own righteousness, but in the reliability of his Redeemer. He knows this person lives. He is active. He is powerful. He is committed to Job's cause. This trust connects Job's individual story to the bigger story of a God who redeems. Let the quiet confidence of that hope settle over you. Breathe in the quiet, breathe out the darkness. What do you do when your deepest questions are met with silence from heaven? For most of the story, this is exactly what happens. Job cries out. He demands an answer. He asks the Creator to explain the reason for his suffering, but the heavens remain silent. This divine silence is one of the most challenging and most realistic parts of the story. It teaches us that faith must often rest without answers. We have to trust in the wisdom of a God who sometimes remains hidden. This silence is not a sign of the Creator's absence or indifference. It is a purposeful part of the process. The silence purifies Job's faith. It moves his relationship with God from a transaction to a genuine trust. Before his suffering, Job's faith was supported by obvious blessings. There was a clear connection between his actions and his rewards. The silence breaks that connection. It forces Job to rely on what he knows of God's unchanging character, not on an immediate explanation or a change in his circumstances. This waiting period is where the deepest growth often occurs. When the Creator is silent, we are left with our own thoughts and our raw faith. We have to dig deeper. We have to decide if we will trust God even when He does not speak. This process refines our motives. It strips away the superficial layers of faith that depend on feedback and visible results. It forces us to build a foundation that can withstand silence and mystery. Breathe in the stillness. Feel the quiet deepen. Think of it like a parent teaching a child to walk. The parent stands a few feet away. The child wants to be picked up, but the parent stays silent and encourages the child to take a step. The silence is not a lack of love. It is an invitation to grow, to develop strength, to learn to walk alone in trust. The parent is fully present and watching closely, but allowing the child to experience the effort and the reward of movement. God's silence can feel like that. It is an invitation to exercise our faith muscles, to learn to walk in trust without constant reassurance. This period of silence lasted through many chapters of debate and lament for Job. He had to sit in the deep uncertainty. He had to endure the accusations of his friends without a word from heaven to defend him. This experience deepened his dependence. It moved him from demanding his rights to ultimately surrendering to God's wisdom. The silence prepared him for the revelation that was coming. Take a moment, release your own need for answers. Then, after chapters of silence, God finally speaks. But he answers Job out of a whirlwind. This is not a quiet, gentle voice. It is powerful and overwhelming, and his response is not what we might expect. God does not provide a point-by-point explanation of the heavenly wager with Satan. He offers no apology or detailed justification for Job's pain. Instead, he responds with a series of profound questions. These questions are not accusations. They are an invitation to see the world from a much larger perspective. God's speeches redirect Job's focus. He takes Job on a tour of creation. He asks, "Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth?" He describes the marvels of the natural world. He speaks of the stars, the sea, the wild animals, and the weather. The purpose is to shift Job's attention from his own limited, painful circumstances to God's cosmic sovereignty. The answer God provides is not an explanation for suffering. It is a revelation of the sufferer's majestic character. God reveals himself as the all-powerful, all-wise creator who governs a universe of immense complexity and beauty. The solution to Job's crisis is found not in a theory about pain, but in a person. It is found in a renewed, awe-filled relationship with the Creator himself. God invites Job to trust the wisdom of the one who orders the universe, even when that wisdom is hidden in the mystery of pain. He is essentially saying, if I can manage the entire cosmos, from the constellations to the mountain goats, can you trust me with the details of your life, even the painful ones you don't understand? The grandeur of creation itself becomes the evidence of God's good and powerful rule. The solution was always a personal encounter that satisfied his soul, not a philosophical answer that satisfied his intellect. When Job truly sees who God is, his questions begin to fade in the light of that revelation. Rest in the majesty of that endless power. Let your body grow heavy and still. The voice from the whirlwind continues, not a voice of anger, but a sound of unfathomable power. It is the voice of the Creator, and it still does not provide the explanation Job demanded. Instead, the Creator answers with a series of overwhelming questions. He is not asking Job why he suffered, but who holds the wisdom to govern the universe. He takes Job on a tour of the cosmos, gently but firmly redirecting his focus. Settle your mind now. Feel your breathing grow slow and steady. The Creator begins with the foundations of the world. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me, if you have understanding. He describes the setting of boundaries for the sea, the immense pressure of the waters, the quiet command that determines where the ocean will stop. He speaks of the deep darkness and the rising light, of leading the morning across the edges of the land. Imagine those pictures now, the vast dark ocean being quietly contained, the slow, inevitable rising of the dawn. Feel the immense scale of that power, a power that is completely under control. The Creator asks if Job can command the morning to break, or make the rain fall upon the barren, deserted land where no human lives. He questions Job about the vast, chaotic forces of the world that exist entirely outside of human knowledge or control. This is a revelation of the sufferer's majestic character. The answer is not a philosophical proposition about pain, but personal encounter with the one who holds all things together. The Creator moves from the cosmos to the creatures. He describes the fierce wildness of the donkey and the ostrich, the untamed nature of beasts that do not answer to human command. He speaks of providing food for the lion and the raven, showing that his intimate care extends even to the farthest, wildest parts of his creation. Every detail is meant to show that the Creator is intimately involved in a world far bigger than Job's personal tragedy. The grandeur of creation itself becomes the quiet, undeniable evidence of his good and powerful rule. The Creator is essentially saying, if I can manage the entire cosmos, from the constellations to the mountain goats, can you not trust me with the details of your life, even the painful ones you don't understand? Let the quiet certainty of that truth wash over you. Feel your whole body relax. The solution to Job's crisis is found not in a theory, but in a person. It is found in a renewed, awe-filled relationship with the Creator himself. The questions are not meant to crush Job, they are meant to enlarge his view of God. Before this, Job's understanding was confined to his own relatively small world of righteousness and blessing. Now the Creator shows him the incredible scope of his creative power and sustaining care. Job's focus is fully reoriented. He stops demanding an explanation and starts simply worshipping the explainer. He realizes that the God who manages the universe can be trusted with his pain. Take a moment, release your own need for certainty. When we encounter the overwhelming majesty of the Creator, the only proper response is surrender. Job's final words are not an argument, but a quiet, humble acknowledgement. He says, I know that you can do all things. I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. This represents a profound shift. He moves from knowing about God to knowing God intimately through the deep, shared experience of suffering. His new understanding is rooted in a humble acknowledgement of the Creator's absolute freedom and wisdom. He sees that God's ways are beyond his comprehension. He repents, but not of specific sins his friends accused him of. He repents of the limited perspective that tried to contain God within a neat, predictable box. This is a repentance that enlarges the soul rather than crushing it. True knowledge of God leads to a quieting of our demands and a deepening of our trust. Job's questions are not all answered, but they are quieted by the sheer presence of God. He realizes that knowing God is better than knowing the reasons for his pain. Suffering has become the means through which he sees God more clearly. Let the humility of Job's final words settle your own heart. Breathe in the quiet confidence of his power. Job has surrendered. His questions are quieted by the sheer majesty of the Creator. He now knows God, not just by reputation, but by intimate personal encounter. Yet one profound test remains, a final requirement for the healing of his soul. This test involves the men who came to comfort him, and instead became his accusers. The friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, they had spent weeks misrepresenting the divine heart and deepening Job's agony with their harsh words. The Creator now speaks to these friends. His voice is firm, sorrowful. He tells them plainly that they have not spoken rightly about him, as his servant Job has. Settle your mind now. Feel your breathing grow slow and steady. And then comes the command, a deep act of redemptive grace. The Creator instructs Job to pray for his friends. This is not a suggestion. It is a divine command, a crucial test of Job's own healing and forgiveness. Interceding for others is a powerful act that breaks the cycle of self-focused suffering. It demonstrates that true restoration often begins with an act of grace toward those who have hurt us. Job is being asked to release the resentment, to willingly bring these men who wounded him with their words before the Creator's mercy. By praying for them, Job participates in their restoration as well as his own. Take a moment, release any lingering bitterness in your own heart. This act of obedience aligns Job's heart with the Creator's merciful character. It closes the door on bitterness and opens the way for blessing. The very man who was accused is now positioned as the intercessor, the one who mediates forgiveness. This is a profound reversal of the earlier dynamic. His friends had positioned themselves as his spiritual superiors, his judges. Now, the Creator positions Job as their conduit of grace. This required Job to release any resentment he held toward them. It is difficult to hold a grudge against someone you are actively bringing before the Creator's mercy. Praying for someone who has wronged you changes your own heart. This command completes Job's transformation. It moves him from being a recipient of unjust criticism to being a conduit of grace. His restoration is not just about getting his life back. It is about becoming a more merciful, compassionate person through the entire ordeal. Breathe in the quiet. Feel your dependence deepen. The pathway to full healing involves forgiving those who compounded his pain. This step ensures that when his blessings are restored, he is also restored internally. He is free from the poison of bitterness. His heart is aligned with the heart of God, who is slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love. The Creator then accepts Job's prayer. This simple act of intercession becomes the very hinge upon which his entire fortune turns. The focus shifts completely from Job's integrity to his mercy. He proved his integrity by refusing to sin with his lips in the midst of loss. Now he proves his mercy by extending grace to his accusers. Imagine the quiet dignity of that prayer. Job, sitting in the ashes, his wounds still raw, speaking words of blessing and petition for the men who had failed him. It is a powerful scene of surrender and grace. This final act of obedience opens the heavens for his own blessing. The physical restoration is ready to begin, but only once the spiritual requirement, forgiveness, has been met. The lesson is gentle and clear. Our deepest healing begins when we look beyond our own pain and extend mercy to others. It is in the act of giving grace that we fully receive it ourselves. Let the quiet relief of forgiveness wash over you. Feel your whole body relax and grow heavy. The prayer has been offered. The final test of grace has been met. Job has forgiven his friends, aligning his heart with the deep mercy of the Creator. It is only now that the physical world shifts to match the profound healing that has occurred within his soul. Settle your mind now. Let your breathing grow slow and steady. The narrative makes a specific point. After Job prayed for his accusers, the Lord restored his fortunes. The text then adds a crucial, comforting detail. The Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before. This is not a simple replacement. The doubling signifies something immensely important about the Creator's redemptive work. It is not merely restorative, it is multiplicative. The blessing that comes after the trial surpasses the blessing that came before it. Imagine the quiet procession now, the new flocks, the vast herds returning to the barren lands, not just a return to normal, but a steady, slow abundance that covers the ground. He ends up with twice the sheep, twice the camels, twice the oxen and donkeys. This material doubling is a quiet, concrete sign of the Creator's overwhelming generosity. This outcome affirms the immense value of steadfast faith. It demonstrates the divine, deep commitment to his people. Breathe in the quiet, feel the sense of peaceful abundance. But the restoration goes far beyond livestock and wealth. It includes a new family, a renewed purpose. The text tells us that Job had 7 more sons and 3 more daughters. This is the same number of children as before. It is not a replacement, but a symbol of renewed life, a gentle unfolding of a future that seemed impossible. The new family symbolizes renewed life and hope. It shows that the Creator's ultimate purpose is not suffering, but redemption and life. The story makes a special note of the new daughters. They were renowned for their beauty throughout the land, and Job gave them an inheritance along with their brothers. This was highly unusual in that culture. It signifies a new level of justice and blessing within his household. The restoration creates something new and even more beautiful. Let the quiet relief of renewed life settle over you. The trial, though profoundly painful, became a gateway to a greater experience of the divine goodness. Job's story does not end with him simply getting back to where he started. It ends with him in a place of increased blessing and deeper relationship with God. He knew God in a way that was impossible before the suffering. His faith was refined and strengthened. The restoration was not a reward for perfect patience. Job struggled and questioned and lamented. The restoration was an act of the Creator's pure, endless grace. This final act completes the blueprint. It shows that worship and trust, even through doubt and pain, lead to a place of restoration and abundance. This restoration is both tangible and spiritual. Job's story encourages us to hold on. It assures us that our faithful endurance is not in vain. The Creator is a God of restoration. He delights in bringing life out of death and hope out of despair. The double portion is a symbol of his overwhelming generosity, a promise that his ultimate plans for us are for our good. Job lived a long life, seeing his children and his children's children, 4 generations deep. He saw all the purpose of his journey through to the end. The final lesson from Job's journey is this: the God who permits the suffering is also the God who orchestrates the multiplicative restoration. His faithfulness is the constant truth through every season. The New Testament confirms this gentle truth. You have heard of the perseverance of Job, and have seen the Lord's purpose, that the Lord is compassionate and merciful,